Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. And excuse the way that I sound. I'm fighting this upper respiratory junk that I've had here for a while since the fog of death. We had you all heard about that fog? I'm not going to talk about it here. I'm probably going to talk about it on the DoomTube channel. By the way, the DoomTube channel is exploding. That's where I talk about more of the, I won't call it crazy, more of the stuff in depth that really, I think, are threats. Here is, this channel is about preparedness. That channel is more about, hey, here's what really is going to happen and what really could happen. It's a different animal. And so if you're not with us over there, I invite you to come over. The link is down below. Like I say, it's going great guns. And I'm happy to see that, because there's a lot that I wanted to talk about. Well, I'll leave it there. Maybe I'll address that another time. So I'll try not to cough or sneeze more than absolutely necessary. All right. I want to talk about the attacks that happened yesterday, and whether more attacks are coming. And I'll tell you my answer right up front. I'm almost sure that they will be. It would be my It would be my guess, it would be my assumption that we're going to see quite a few in the future. And whether it's going to be, whether there's going to be a lot leading up to the inauguration or more after that, I don't know, but I think they're coming. As a matter of fact, it's the possibility that I see ahead of us is making me change what I normally carry, my carry gun. I'm gonna change what I carry, because I want something more effective. And I'll talk about that over on the Patreon channel. See, I have different channels for different things. So, and I can't tell you probably anything that you don't already know about the attacks, because there's plenty of information out there. Now, information, right? Is it real or is it Memorex? Is it real or is it just a bunch of bull? It's impossible to know in these things, but we go on what we think we know, and that's what we read and what we hear. So I probably don't know any more than you all do, but I might have a little bit different track on this than some. I have watched a couple of other channels on this morning. I don't usually watch other channels, but I've watched a couple. One was just the same old sky is falling, blah, 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 Nothing there. The other one was pretty good. They brought it together, kind of explaining, their ideas of some suspicions. Yeah, good. Okay. Let me add something here. And it goes back to this idea of, are there sleeper cells now being activated in America? That's been, I won't call it an urban legend. That's something that's been, whether you want to say you've considered it or whether you know it, depends on, your information base. But yeah, it's pretty much a given amongst those who know that there have been many sleeper cells here for a long time. I'll tell you a story. I've told this before, but I think it's going to mean more right now. About a friend of mine, and this was about, I'm thinking 2005, maybe, something like that, 4 or 5. And it was a good friend of mine, and he had left the military before 9/11, and then he had done 15 years in special forces, got irritated over some things, pissed off at a colonel, how it goes, and left. And then after 9/11, tried to get back in. Took him a long time to get back in because of a lot of things. And anyway, he got back in. And so he went back over to the GWAT, right? And he told me later on, it doesn't matter where or when, excuse me, that he was over, and I won't say where, he was over at a place over there in the Middle East, and he was going to a meeting that he was supposed to be at. And he walked into the room where he thought the meeting was, and it wasn't the people that he expected to see there. And there was a map laid out on a table. And he said before they covered it up, he saw that the map was not of the Middle East, it was of the United States. And because he was fairly senior, he got to talk. These were agency guys. Okay. And as they got to talking, they did come out when they found out where he was from. Excuse me, half a second. Sorry. I didn't want to cough in your face. So when they found out where he was from, and you know, I mean, if you have good relations with people with other agencies, they'll share information with you. Some will, some won't. They told him that outside of the Middle East, there were more militant Islamists between Lawrence, Kansas, and Columbia, Missouri than anywhere else in the world outside the Middle East. Are you shocked to hear that? Well, I was. He was. You know, I'm only passing along what he told me, and he was a very intelligent guy, and he wasn't a BSer. So I accept, you know, pretty much what he says. And as I got to thinking about it, I realized, and some of you may remember that Saddam's chemical czar or whatever it was a woman. Dr. Death or whatever it was. She had been a professor at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because it will surprise you where a lot of things are here in America. And as I got to thinking about this, I realized there's a huge Islamic center at the University of Kansas, which is a very liberal school. I mean, Kansas is a conservative state, but we call Lawrence, Kansas, where KU is, Moscow on the Kaw. There's a huge Islamic center there. And there is a huge Islamic center at the University of Missouri. And so between that, Lawrence, Kansas is about 50 miles west of me. Columbia, Missouri, where MU is, Missouri, is about 100 miles east of me. So I'm right in the middle of, we call this area Mocan, Missouri, Kansas. I'm right in the middle of Mocanistan. Well, anyway, this is 2005. And since that time, we have seen an explosion of Islamic centers, Islamic education centers, mosques, everything, all through this area. You would be surprised where mosques are. You go to the Ozarks, you're going to find Islamic groups. So they have been building ever since before 9/11. Now, the interesting thing about that, I just put that over to the side. The interesting thing is, of course, this guy, the one that was down, what was his name? Samdam Jabbar, whatever it was, I don't know, that drove the truck down there. And I know there's a lot of interesting things here, right? Both vehicles, both that one and the Cybertruck in Vegas, were rented through this, what is it? I don't know what it was. I have a friend of mine who rents a bunch of cars through this. I mean, he's bought cars and made them available to be rented through this. I want to say FUBAR, but I know that's not what it is. Whatever it is, both of them were rented through that, which is kind of an odd, I don't know how odd it is. But this Sandam Din Jabbar, whatever his name is, turns out was he former military? I think he was former. I don't know if he was still. I forget. It doesn't matter. He was Army, right? And so we have that, and they say he was flying an ISIS flag on his truck. Now let's get back to Vegas. I've heard. Now, first off, it makes me more than ever want to buy a Cybertruck, right? Did you see what happened to that thing? That thing bore almost no damage. right? So you can shoot it with a machine gun from the outside. You can blow things up from the inside, and it still looks pretty good. Blew out the, the, the top of the truck bed and all that. But man, you believe this? What a great ad for Cybertrucks. I guess the guy who lit that one off didn't do his homework enough. He should have got an American or just a regular pickup. Then he might have got what he wanted done. Well, I found it interesting that what they found in the back was fireworks. Here again, is it true what we're hearing? We don't know. And you're not going to know the information that comes out through law enforcement. They can be telling you the truth. They can be singing a song that you don't know. So they say it was fireworks and fuel canisters and things like that. Okay, all right. The guy was able to light it up with stuff you can just buy off the shelf. Good, Interestingly, now this guy was also Army, apparently active duty Army, and something that I saw on a couple of news sources, one being the Daily Mail. And I'm always interested that we get a lot more information sooner out of the Brit papers than we do out of our own. But the Daily Mail, and I think it was Yahoo, you can say, well, I don't believe those, okay, believe it or not, doesn't matter. You believe what you want to. A couple of the sources, including the Daily Mail, identified him as a 37-year-old active duty. But then they said something very interesting. They said he was Special Forces. Now, I don't know this to be true. And I would be interested to know over on the Patreon channel. Mark, let me know what you think about this, all right? And while I don't like to think this, because I've had a lot of friends. I wasn't in the military, but for some reason, I don't know why, I've just had loads of friends that were either former or current Special Forces, that's Army. And I great guys, every one of them I've ever known. Super patriots, for the most part. Super patriots, very smart. A cut above, many cuts above. And so I don't like to hear this. But as an old police investigator, I know not to discount anything. And I also know that among the Special Forces community, going clear back to Vietnam, among many are super patriots. They are very patriotic. Now this brings up something that I'm not sure how far down this road I'm going to go. I have often wondered if there wasn't a reason. No, I'm not going. That's just going to further confuse this video. Maybe I'll do a separate one on it. I think maybe I'll do that one on Doom Tomb about the special operations, why we have kept special operations in the Middle East so much. Probably some of you have your own ideas. Well, let me just put it this way. I will say this. In the special operations community and Marine Recon, SEALs also, I don't know, but very patriotic people and very, very capable. And there may be some of you who remember way back in the 90s and the 80s. Now, I'm gonna say something here kind of cryptic. Maybe a few will understand, most won't, but I'm not going to get into it any further. There were groups within Special Forces that how shall I say? I can't. I'm not going to say this. Let me just put it this way. There may be reasons that our government wanted to keep those very capable people out of the country. You know, and it's not that they were bad people; it's that the government's bad. How about that? There's your minnow of truth. So when you have a group of people who are super capable and super patriots, and you're running a corrupt government, do you want those people close by? No. You want them overseas fighting other people, right? Continuing along, screwing them up physically, mentally, emotionally, so that you can keep those defense contracting dollars coming in. Ran into a young guy the other day at the range, and matter of fact, he had come up to me. I was training a couple of young men. This young man came up, very respectful, big guy. He was taller than I. He's probably 6'4". I mean, he was hard. You could tell. I knew he was something. And he asked me to come check his draw stroke. And so I did. And there was something about him. We got to talk. It turned out he'd done 11 years in the SEAL teams. And I asked him what he was doing now. And he said he was contracting. And I just, man, I looked at this fine young man, and I saw the road that the weirdness of this country is going to take him down. And I saw that he still had a lot of humanity in him, and it just made me sad what might be in his future because of what our country does. I know I got off track there a little bit, but so I told him be safe, take care of himself, and I'll say a prayer for him. But our country, think about this. Just put this in the mix of everything that we're talking about. Mark over on Patreon. Let me know what you think. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Do I expect there are going to be more attacks coming? Now let me roll this back and say, as far as this guy being active duty special forces, I just got that from a couple of news sources. Doesn't make it true, but it makes it interesting. It's interesting enough for me that I'm going to be paying attention to it. And when we think about who may be rising up or who, well, I'll leave it there. Do I expect more attacks coming? Yes, I do. So prepare. How do you prepare? I know there's those people going to say, stay out of crowds. I had one of our very, very good commenters yesterday say, stay out of crowds. I'm not going to stay out of crowds. Not if something that I want to go to is a crowd. I'm not going to stay out. I'm not going to hide. I mean, yeah, I know it's trite to say it, but then they win. And it's not a matter of, well, I'm not going to let you win. I'm going to go to a crowd. It's just that I'm going to go, but I'm going to be prepared. And that's why also I am changing my carry weapon to something even more effective than I do now. And I think maybe I'll just do that on Patreon, because that's where I do most of the gun stuff. YouTube has been pumping my video from a long time ago about why you shouldn't carry a 9mm. So if any of you are carrying 9mm, go back, look at I explain it very well. Oh, it chaps the ass of all the little 9-tards that are just in love with their 9mm. And I get nasty comments from them all the time because they get all this information out of some gun magazine. And don't you know this? And don't you know that the FBI carries 9mm? I couldn't care less what the FBI carries. I don't have that high opinion of them. And I know that they carry a 9mm because they start hiring women and small men who couldn't handle larger weapons. So there you have that. But if you're carrying a 9mm, I would suggest you move up to a man-sized caliber. But I explain that all over there. You might find it interesting. So anyway, more attacks? Yes, I fully expect more attacks. Does this mean that sleeper cells are being activated? It could be. We will see. The number and the effectiveness of the strikes and attacks coming up in the future will tell us whether sleeper cells are being activated or whether it's just the occasional guy with a problem. And at this point, we don't know. My expectations are that things are going to get dicier. So I plan for the possibilities, right? And so should you. Okay, leave it at that. Remember, we prepare well today. You're not using one of your regular mugs, Steve. No, I'm not. This is one my kids gave me, and I love it. One more sip, and I'll bid you goodbye. We prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and that means that we need to have some understanding of the possibilities of what may be coming. Okay? Join us over on the DoomTube channel. The link is down below. I get into more stuff than I get into on here. And join us on the Patreon channel. You will learn a lot. That link is also down there. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.